Hi everyone. Thanks Georgia for that introduction. So my name's Alexis Quinn. I've written a book about the experiences, some of which I'll share today, about being detained for almost 4 years in 12 different settings up and down the country. And I guess the epitome of my story is the fact that I really needed to escape from this care and support, supposedly, which I was receiving. So when I reflect on this time now, after being involved in content creation for the National Autism Trainer Programme, I suppose, like Lauren, I wonder what my time might have looked like if those staff who were desperately often trying to help me had had the benefit of the training. So I think first of all, I think staff need to appreciate how autistic minds work if they were to fully accept us. Staff need to know that accepting and collaborative attitudes and de-escalation strategies are key to successful treatment plans. When I was in hospital, people focused on all of the things that I was doing that were risky, that were dangerous, and perhaps even socially disruptive. Understandably, my sensory seeking difficulties and communicative challenges were difficult for me too. Yet, with the focus on that kind of objectification and that vilification, no one could see any further than the behavior. And so behavior plans were drawn up, that had rewards. I used to get stars for my star chart and sanctions, when I predictably would get distressed. And staff engaged in things like planned ignoring, right? Or blank face observations. And of course, restrictive practices. And so I got stuck in this cycle, right, of overload, meltdown, restraint, solitary confinement. And then I'd be anxious for when it would start again. And I think that's because nobody actually paid attention to my internal world. And because nobody was doing that, I was unable to do that for myself too. So it's, of course, always easy for people to enjoy aspects of a person when they're perceived as positive. So when I was swimming for Great Britain or was doing well in my career, people were okay with my monotropic ways. But when these same concentrated thought and feeling loops were happening that people didn't appreciate and people didn't like, then suddenly that autistic part got really ostracized. And that fractured my sense of self. And it led to irreparable harm, which I still suffer today. So what I hope, I guess, is that my contributions to the National Autism Trainer Programme have inspired people to examine their values, their competencies, related, as people have said already, to that experience-sensitive approach, to that truly collaborative approach, to think about preventing through support. Let's not focus on de-escalation. Let's think about providing the support, first of all. So this co-produced curriculum, what I think it does is it encourages people to be abundantly generous in their curiosity, to really think about what's happening underneath that so-called behavior. I think that I hope that it gets people to kind of enter into autistic people's world, to view things from their frame of reference and not stand outside criticizing it and pulling autistic people into painfully neuronormative ways. And eventually, I think, through, working out and thinking about plans of ways that we can provide that support, again, not focusing just on providing that safety, that we'll avoid completely the need for physical and chemical interventions as the sole answer to crisis. That's not support. It's most important to do this when people are their most distressed. It's easy to do these things when people seem all right, when you're having a chat with them, when they're having a good day. Much harder to do them when people are distressed. So, what about love? Is there even a space to talk about such a thing? Therapeutic love, right? In such a training? I think there is. After all, the qualities of love are inherent in things like active empathic listening, respect, kindness, that so often autistic people and their families say are missing from their encounters with professionals. And of course, it's love that connects all of us when we're in crisis. It's love that connects all of us when we're having a good day. It's, after all, one of the main reasons I think most professionals go into work with those that are distressed, with autistic people, into the care settings, because they want to improve outcomes for people. And I think that most professionals, certainly in my experience, want to get it right. So love and care can be the antidote to that fear, right? That confusion and that pain that is sometimes inherent in encounters with people of a different neurotype in those moments of crisis. And what we know is that once admitted, people are at risk of restrictive interventions and significantly delayed discharge, and of course the trauma that results from that. So recently I co-authored a paper with a whole lot of people actually joined, wasn't it? There's a whole lot of people that illustrates the limitations actually of our current approaches to the challenges that are experienced by people. And I think what this does, this experience sensitive approach, is it really forefronts relational working. It really picks it apart about what comprises it. And it enables the more effective application of evidence-based practice. What we don't want is distance created between autistic people and non-autistic people. And I think that that's a real worry for me, because sometimes when we focus on difference, we forget what's similar about one another. We forget what unites us actually in our humanity. So I'm going to finish with a story, which I think, you know, is one of the impacts from the messaging actually of this program. And I'm going to give you two examples. So I was at a conference a while back and I communicated, you know, the importance of therapeutic love with a story, which I'm sure some of you have heard today, but some of you haven't. So I'm going to tell it anyway. I was being transferred between two secure hospitals in a cage, very small cage, bench to sit on, no seatbelt. And it was a long journey. And my hands were handcuffed and my knees were tied together and my feet were tied together. And I was kind of bouncing along in this cage. You can imagine the noise of a cage bouncing along a series of motorways. And they put this lighting in there, which is quite bright, and the ambulance is kind of white. And it was very overwhelming, of course, not least because, as I say, I was in a cage. And they don't stop for the toilet, right? That's just not a thing. So when I got to the other end, I was covered in urine and my throat was killing me because obviously I'd been doing a little bit of screaming, I must admit. And my eyes were stinging from lots and lots of crying, and I was covered in snot. Can imagine the scene. Anyway, the doors of the ambulance open, and what we had was two members of staff on this side of the door as they opened, and two members of staff on the other side. And I was lifted out. And they also had staff dotted a bit, you know, in the background, sort of where you guys are, right, at the back of the room. So you can imagine the scene. I'm completely tied up, so I can't go anywhere. But the inherent messaging that I received, and which I remember to this day, is this idea of threat. I'm completely tied up. There's nowhere I can go. I'm covered in urine, I'm covered in snot, and we've got a restraint team prepared. They're prepared for action. So a nurse comes out, who I'd known from a previous admission to this low secure hospital, and she tells the staff, take the handcuffs off, take the leg straps off. And you can see the staff looking at each other. I don't think we will. Have you heard her in the back of the car the whole way? She said, take the leg straps off, take the handcuffs off. Anyway, very reluctantly, the members of staff, they took them off. And she came and she gave me a big hug. And she said, you're safe, Alexis, it's okay. And I think the most important thing about this story for me is that you have a choice, don't you? You can be like those members of staff and you can be prepared for action and you can focus on difference. You can focus on difference. You can focus on risk if you want to, or you can focus on our shared humanity and the fact that I've been sat in a cage for 4 hours and I was covered in urine and snot. And she still didn't care. And she still gave me a hug, which said to me, that the urine and the snot's fine. I don't care how you are. I'm going to love you anyway. I'm going to accept you anyway. Come into the ward, you're welcome. So this turns me next onto a story about shit. So a couple of weeks after I told this story at a conference, as I am today, a nurse contacted me and he said, you know what, Alexis, I did what you said. I entered into the person's world and I didn't drag them into mine. I was like, I really need to tell you about it. And I thought, oh God, okay, tell me. So this person that he was supporting is a mental health nurse. The person had been locked up for 2 years in solitary confinement and they had been smearing feces, right? Smearing shit. Really effective way, isn't it? To keep people away from you if you smear shit. Nobody wants to come near you, right? Anyway, the nurse couldn't get close to this person because of it. So the door was locked all the time. And they refused to talk and engage. So the nurse thought to themselves, how can I get into this person's world? So he went home to his kids and they spent the weekend making shit, right? They did an excellent job. They made it really gritty. He was telling me all about it. You know, it was quite solid but soft. Went in back into the ward, heated it up a bit in the microwave before he went to see the person. And he opened the seclusion room door and he said to the person, can you show me what to do with this? And they spent the next few minutes smearing the shit all over the room of the seclusion room. And for the first time in 2 years, no word of a lie, for the first time in 2 years, this man spoke in an unprompted way and he just said, thanks. Now, this story isn't really about shit, is it? It's about showing a person that all of them can be loved, even the stuff which people might find difficult. It's about entering into the person's frame of reference. It's about understanding their fears. It's about understanding their challenges. It's about understanding their deepest distress and about saying to them, do you know what? We can accept all of that. Love you for it anyway. So, you know, I think what I want to say today is this training, it offers a neurodivergent friendly approach, right, to thinking about support. And it is about support. It's not even about de-escalation. It's about providing the right support straight away, right? It's designed and delivered by the population it seeks to serve. And in that way, it enables this insight, doesn't it, into autistic people's lives. And I think it's, you know, thanks to the thousands of people that have been involved, that, you know, I hope to see, you know, more commitment from funders and from trusts and towards, you know, supporting us and the, you know, to plant those seeds, you know, that we've been planting through this curriculum. And of course, a massive thank you, you know, to Ruth and Georgia, who have just been, you know, fearlessly really leading the way, because it can't be easy every day to be coming up against, you know, such a different prism or, you know, way of viewing the world. So thanks, everybody.